Yeah,
Wonderful.
I was like, gotta wait for somebody to say it.
So I've told the students a little bit about you, but not much. So the stage is yours.
All right. So thank you guys for having me. Again, apologize I'm a little late. So I was walking around, and one tip I will give you guys is always kind of be aware of your surroundings. Cause I went up to like 3 people, and they all had headphones. And, wait, I'm trying to find my room. Please help me. So be aware of your surroundings, because you never know who you're going to talk to. So if I see them later, I'm going to remember them. Like, you didn't help me when I needed it, right?
Exactly.
So one tip to remember. So my name is Monica Cervantes. I'm from Wonderful Orchards. So Jeremy might have, or Professor Woods might have told you a little bit about me, hopefully good things. But to give you a background about me, I spent most of my career in human resources. Prior to joining the wonderful company formerly known as Paramount, I was with a company called Rainforest, and that was straight out of college here at CSUB. Excuse me, let me get you some water. So I graduated from CSUB with a business administration degree with a concentration in economics, and I went into human resources. You're kind of like, well, why? Who does that leap, right? So the way I got into human resources was a recruiter actually kind of convinced me to get into human resources. Like many of you, probably close to graduation, I'm like, what am I going to do? You have a degree in accounting, or you have a degree in business or management, but job opportunities are endless. And as a student, you only get exposed to like people, guest speakers like me who come out and talk, or you do your research on your own. So fortunately for me, I was doing interviews for a warehouse manager job, and from there, like I was talking with the recruiter, he eventually offered me a job to work for him, and that was more of like a mentorship opportunity. So I took it, I risked it. I didn't know very much about human resources, but it's really benefited me since then. So at Rainforest, I kind of learned the recruiting realm. So let's see. Can I pull up a website from here?
Sure. Actually, you'll need to pull it up here, though.
Oh, okay.
For the folks to see it.
Sure.
What do we need?
It's just rainforest.com.
Got it.
So when I was looking for jobs while in college, if you want to stay local, you kind of know the big players, right? So you guys might now know Wonderful, probably know Bowl House, Chevron, what used to be Oxy, now California Resources Corporation. So I applied to all of the companies, but I also wasn't getting called back from those locations. So did some more research, and I found this company, Rainforest. Who knows this company? Anybody? Good? A couple? So like 3. How many people are in the class?
42.
All right. So for accounting majors, that's a very low percentage, right? 3 of 40, 45, right?
Yes.
So I was one of those who didn't know who Rainforest was, but I figured I'm going to go apply for them. And I was planning to do a warehouse job there because I wanted a job right out of college. And what I found was, as I was doing my research on the company, is that they are Are you here for your presentation?
Yes, sir.
All right, come on in. So what I found out about Rainforest is that they're an international company. They do services in Germany and Canada and throughout the United States. And they support multiple locations. They had a corporate office in Bakersfield. They're a multi-million-dollar company, family-owned, operated. And I didn't know any of that. I just drove down the 99 freeway and saw what looked like a yard that had sprinkler systems in it. And I thought, okay, I guess I'm going to do the warehouse work for them there, only to find out they're this ginormous company. So I was very grateful for the opportunity. I pulled this up because prior to them having this kind of nice website, they didn't have any website. It was just a locally kind of known name, and if you're in oil and gas or in farming, that's how you knew about them. But I took a risk to join them in their human resources department. It really paid off. So I was able to help kind of develop their website, their marketing material. My job consisted of going out and recruiting. So I recruited oil field workers, truck drivers, managers, and then eventually, once I got exposure to recruiting kind of what you would call entry-level roles, they moved me on to recruit more of the top executives. So the highest position I recruited there was like a director of accounting. So it just came with many years of doing human resources and recruiting that you eventually get to that level. So I left Rainfront after 4 years of service to what is now the wonderful company. So we can go back to the front now. So I joined what was formerly known as Paramount Citrus, which you guys may have heard of cuties a long time ago. Yes? Those are still around. They're just a bad word from where I come from. You can go to the next one.
Okay.
So why would they be kind of a bad word now, right? They're a good piece of fruit. Cuties is a cute name, you know, good marketing. Well, we had a business relationship with another company in Kern County, and we both were doing the same product. Well, in business, sometimes relationships go sour, and that's exactly what happened. So we just decided to sell off the cutie name, the brand, to the other company, and we just said, we're going to start from scratch. So I was recruited into what was Paramount Citrus as their first recruiter. So my job was to basically hire all the people that were going to be in the Halos plant, who would be processing all of the fruit. So have you guys driven down to Delano lately? Yeah? Everybody see that big Halo box? Right. So the plant that was right behind that, have you guys seen it?
Yes.
Yeah. So prior to me joining there, they were barely building that. So my job was to hire everybody to work in there. Right. So it's about 65,000 square feet. It fits about 11 football fields inside that plant. It is the world's largest sorting line for citrus. They brought in equipment from Brazil. They brought in a bunch of people to come and research all the equipment that was to go in there. And so it's all a very state-of-the-art facility in Delano, right? You're like, in Delano, in Kern County. Who knew all of this, right? And I bring all of this up because I didn't. I had to do a lot of research beforehand to make sure that it was something that I felt like I could potentially do. Again, I went to Rainfront, didn't know nothing about them. That was oil and gas, environmental, emergency response type services. Then joined Paramount Citrus, now Wonderful Citrus, under the wonderful company which used to be called Roll Global. So you see all those names? I have to try to convince people to come work for us and describe all of the history and all the things we have to offer. And it's taken a long time to get that name recognition. So some of that from before, you know, we have the cuties name. People didn't know what cuties were. Then people knew what cuties were. And then we said, oh, we're not doing that anymore. Now we're doing Halos. Now to get the name recognition of Halos and to keep growing. So you see, a change cycle is usually 2 years. So people go with the change or they leave, right? So it's a curve. It goes like this, right? Circle and then intertwines. So companies usually change in 2 years. So Cuties development took 2 years, and we decided to change to the Halos, so that was another 2-year change cycle curve. So I spent about 4 years there to see the company change twice over, okay? In that time, probably hired anywhere from 500 seasonal employees and roughly about 300-400 full-time employees to talk to. So if you think about when you recruit, how many candidates do you think we talk to? One? No? Right. So for every one job, there's probably at minimum 75 applicants. Some positions have hundreds, right? So my job is to write the job description, make sure that the compensation is in the range of what's competitive, right? So I try to identify, like, what is it going to take to get this job filled? And then it's screen all of the individuals, so those 100 people online, narrow it down to, I like these 20 people, they fit the job. I'm going to talk to these 10 people over the phone, and I'm going to bring these 4 people into the interview, and then this one person gets the job. So when we're recruiting, our goal is anywhere from 30 to 60 days to fill a position. The cost of vacant positions for an organization can be very, very expensive. You're looking at the time it takes to recruit, plus the recruiting cost, plus the time it takes to train an individual. You're looking at almost twice over that person's salary, depending on what role they're in, right? So you don't want to have a position open for a long time. So that's where there's some pressure when it comes to recruiting. Because when you have a good companies like these, though, it's fairly easy to convince people to come and apply. But it wasn't always that easy to say, hey, you live in Bakersfield, drive 45 minutes to Delano to work for the citrus packing company. Some people didn't have the name, didn't know the company at the time, didn't have the recognition, so it had taken a lot of time to grow relationships like this, where we talk to students, where we go to career fairs. We do a lot of Facebook advertising, LinkedIn advertising, so it's taken a while. So to go through kind of the companies, Wonderful Orchards, we don't actually have a product. We are the farming entity for the other companies. So Wonderful Orchards has about 85,000 planted acres between Kern County up to Fireball, California. We do almonds, pistachios, and pomegranates. So our pomegranates specifically go to the company Palm Wonderful, which is based in Delray. Palm Wonderful does all of the production sales portion of it, but we do all of the growing. Then there's Wonderful Pistachios and Almonds, which some of you guys may have seen, like they have events and stuff where they come here. Some of you had questions about the 2-year rotational program that they have. So they're based in Lost Hills. They do also deal with strictly the production up to the sales aspect when it comes to pistachios and almonds. Okay? Quiz question. Does anybody know who is our top competitor in the nut category? Yes, it is Blue Diamond, so you get a prize. You have 2 choices. It's either a Wonderful Orchard's nice portfolio frame with a nice pen, or a water cup with pistachios in it. All right, man. Thank you very much. Yeah, you guys didn't know I was going to give away prizes like that. Just look out for another quiz question, okay?
Keep us on our toes.
That's right. That's right. So, yeah, again, for Wonderful Pistachios and Almonds, they're based in Lost Hills, but a lot of their corporate functions are out of Los Angeles. So if you're thinking of sales, marketing, international marketing, that would be out of the LA office off of Santa Monica and Olympic Boulevard. Then we have Wonderful Citrus, which is based in Delano. They also have offices now in Texas, which deals with the ruby red grapefruit. They're the #1 provider of fresh citrus in the United States. They have about 10% that goes export out to other countries. So if you go to Japan and you buy an orange, it's going to have a little sticker that says Wonderful Citrus, Delano, California. Like, you guys have probably never turned around your boxes of fruit, but if you look at the packaging on it, most of agriculture products come from California. So you have your grapes, you get roses, potatoes, onions, a variety of different crops. So again, all of that here in California, here in Kern County, but it's an international product. Fiji Water, based in Fiji, but their sales are out of Los Angeles. So their #1 thing is that it's untouched by man, meaning it comes from a spring in Fiji, and they have this whole process where it's untouched up until where you have to uncap the bottle. That's the first time somebody actually touches it. Justin Wines was named Winery of the Year for 2015. So we purchased a company, Justin Wines, in Paso Robles. So they do red wines. Do we get employee discounts? Yes. Landmark, they're also in Paso Robles. Both of them have restaurants and hotels. So if you go to Paso Robles and you guys like the tour where you ride the bus and stuff, they're on one of those. So if you ever want to visit. Soterra, they do pesticides and pheromones for our products. So in the fields, they provide products that help the pesticides be confused. So they spray pheromones, which is basically telling the male pest to, hey, there's no female here, like get out of here. So that way our fields aren't infested with pests.
So that's an alternative to conventional spraying, correct?
Well, they still do some spraying, but this is more on the proactive side.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's before they even start getting to the
Correct.
improvement.
Yeah. So the point of the pheromone is it sprays it into the air to help confuse any of the pesticides. Specifically, we have a patent on the navel orange worm, which is the #1 pesticide for nut crops. So, very good question.
Yeah, we had a guest speaker on Tuesday. He actually spoke about the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Kent Stender up from Center of Fag.
Oh, okay.
Here on Tuesday.
Cool. Yeah, so a hot job is a PCA, so Pesticide Control Advisor. You can get a license as a PCA. Entry-level salary for a PCA as of today is $65,000 with no experience, just as long as you have the license. There is 7 categories you can get as a PCA. It's like an exam that you have to take. And basically what that job is you are assigned a certain amount of acres and you are making recommendations to the farmer on what they should spray and how they should treat their soil, the crop, the land, so that way that the farmer has a good yield on their crop. So for every 4 jobs right now that is a PCA, there is 1 qualified person. Can you guys believe that? It's like people don't know that. Yeah. And you do not have to have a plant science degree. You do not have to have a degree specifically in agriculture. You do have to have prerequisite classes, but that's it. So, yeah. These are important things to know, is like what are hot jobs in the market, because if, you are one person that's applying for a PCA and you have the license, that means you will probably get a call back and a job because there aren't enough people that have that background to move into that job. So those are important things to know as a student too when you're looking at careers, which is what are hot jobs that are available now. You may not be thinking about that right now, but you should be, because you want to be employable and you want to be able to get a job out of college, right? I think about, why didn't I get a PCA license? I recruit for them all the time, and they're very, very, very hard to find. So, just something to note. Teleflora, back to this. Teleflora is the company that provides at-home delivery service for flowers. They're known for having a fancy vase, is what I would say. So, it seems like something very simple, but when you look at all the flower delivery companies and you, a person who's looking to buy flowers, everybody's providing the same product. This person differentiated by making a vase that has a ribbon on it, or what we're known for, the happy face vase. Most people will be attracted to that because it's a little bit different, something different, right? So, innovation. Okay. So, after listening to all of this, what's one thing that you got from us having all of these companies?
Diversification.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? So I'll tell you guys. Vertical integration. Anybody know what vertical integration means?
Yeah.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Isn't that where, so you guys have orchards that actually grow the crops, and then you guys process the crops, you package the crops, and then you sell and market and sell the crops as well.
Yeah.
So you handle multiple levels of the essentially the sales and operations involved with these different brands and products that you guys sell.
Right. So as just a corporate entrepreneurial mindset, the Resnicks, they always review different businesses that are related to our existing businesses and what makes sense to bring it into the organization. So if you go to the next slide, let's go down a couple more. Thanks for that one. Yeah. So if you look at our organization, so what did I say that Orchards does? Is everybody still paying attention? Yeah?
Of course.
You said, what does Orchards do?
Yeah, what does my company do?
Oh, aren't you guys, didn't you say pistachios and almonds?
Yeah, so we are the farming entity, right? So what are essentials for growing a crop? Water, pollination, and land, right? So we were spending millions of dollars renting bees to pollinate our 85,000 planted acres. So in 2015, the Resnicks said, hey, why don't we just buy one of these bee businesses and actually save some money here, because we're the #1 consumer of them anyways, right? So we bought a company in Florida that does bees, I should say. And so now that's a vertical integration, right? So farming, we do all the farming part, but we have our internal PCAs that do the recommendations. We own our own bees. We have a water department that deals with all of the water acquisitions that we need. So we don't rely a lot on outside companies. We're able to control a lot of the cost internally. We know what's going on. All of our interest is the same, right? So all of our interest goes to the same person. And so that's a very good thing within a business, because you provide a little bit more stability. You know what things are going to cost. They're able to forecast a little bit better than if it was an external company, right? Because the external company is just trying to show us the pretty picture of like, hey, we have all of this, and we can probably cut you a deal to rent bees at this cost kind of thing. Beekeeping is also a hot job in agriculture. Bees are, some of them are considered endangered species now, and the whole cycle for bees, it's a commodity that is very hard to control, obviously. You go to the next slide.
Okay.
So this is the beekeeping cycle. So here in California, this is where we do all the pollination. So I know some of you guys have probably taken Instagram pictures in February with the almond orchards, right? Or your friends have with the white flowers. That's where we're at right here. That's what we're doing here. They're pollinating. So it's actually very dangerous for people to be out there, so you're out there at your own risk, okay? So, again, that's the pollination time. So everybody thinks of the pictures, but for us, that's business, right? So when they're not pollinating, then they go to actually create the honey, because they've pollinated and they put it back into the hives. So the hives go to create honey here in this area, because here it's an ideal temperature for them, so it would be like March, April, May, June. Rearing is the queen rearing season, so the busy time for us in Florida would be right now, okay, because we're prepping for pollination where they go out in February. So during rearing, what we're doing is we're actually creating more queens for each hive. So a queen bee, anybody want to guess how much one costs? It's like $75 to $100 for one queen bee.
Wow.
Yeah. So we are in business of creating those queen bees at this period in time, so that each box has about 20 to 30,000 bees in it, and then we want to have like 50 to 70,000 hives, boxes, right? So that is a lot of money. So bees is a very good business right now, and there's not a lot of companies that do it. Most people just have their own beehive in their house. Costco sells a kit, so if it's something that you guys want to do on the side as a hobby, totally try it. So there isn't very many classes for bees, but there is one at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and it's only one class, so if that's something that you're interested in. But bees is a very hot commodity. There's not a lot of people that do it. Jobs in beekeeping are entry level, like just a general laborer would be like $17 an hour in comparison to a general farming job, which is minimum wage, right? So that's $7 an hour more. Anybody know what the minimum wage is going to in January? To 15?
No, it's 12.
Stay the same?
It's 10.50, right? So it's going. The law passed for it to go to $15. So
Excited.
yeah, I know you guys got really excited about this. So you guys should strive for more than minimum wage, though, right? Yeah. So all right, just make sure I'm good on time. So that's a little bit about the company. So my job is to know a lot about all of the companies to help recruit people in. So after me talking about all this, does anybody want to come work for us? No? I didn't do a very good job. Right? But it opened your eyes a little bit more to the opportunities that are actually available here locally, right? Did you guys know that there's these large companies that do all of this? And so I bring this up because you're going to be researching jobs when you graduate. It's very important that you guys research the companies as well. You want to join an organization that your values agree with the organization. You know that there's opportunities there. You know that the company is growing. You know that where they came from and where they want to be, right? Could move on to the next slide. So now I'll talk a little bit more about what do I look for when I'm recruiting. So I talked about, the company already. So let's just pretend you guys applied for a job with me. What would I be looking for? So what I look for is good communication, passion for the industry, integrity, and self-confidence. That's kind of just a short, list. Most people are like, well, what else do you look for? Computer skills and all this other stuff. Like, yeah, and most of that will be listed on the job description. That's what you guys will be looking at. Like, do you fit most of those qualifications? But these are things outside of a description that I would look for. So passion for industry, because I'm looking for people to stay long term with the company. I want you to come join us because you like what the company does, you like the industry. It's not just a job, right? So when you're interviewing, it's okay to say, like, you are looking at multiple different types of companies or organizations, but you just remember, like, like if we were dating, I don't want to feel like another girl, right? You gotta make me feel special. So you want to make sure that you have a passion for the industry, you have a passion for the company, right? And let that kind of show through. Self-confidence is good because some people come in, and out of college you might have retail experience or fast food experience, and don't downplay that because that's work experience regardless, right? So I've talked to people at career fairs and they come, well, I just work at McDonald's, or I just, at Burger King, or I just was a receptionist. It's like, remove the word just. I don't ever want to hear that, right? So it's not, I just do this. It's like, no. If you work at McDonald's and you were the cashier for 4 years versus saying, I just work at McDonald's, you need to say, I have been with the McDonald's company for 4 years. I have provided customer service. I've worked the register. I have cash handling experience. So doesn't that sound different than just saying, I just am a cashier, right? So that is self-confidence, right? That is saying, like, I believe in the skills and abilities that I have, and I have this talent. The other thing I warn you about, most of you guys are in the millennial generation, and there is this stereotype out there on the millennials. So you don't want to come off too confident, like, who knows who this guy is? You do? He's from How I Met Your Mother, right? His personality is very self-confident. I am the best. I am amazing. What is your worst flaw? I'm just too awesome, right? So you don't want to come off as the individual who's not going to learn anything, knows more than the interviewer, knows more than the manager. So there is a balance there, right? You want to have some confidence, but don't too much, right? So integrity. So be honest in your answers when you interview. It's good to research types of questions in advance, but don't come off too practiced. So what is a common interview question? Does anybody know? Yes.
Why do you want to work for our company?
Okay. Anybody else? A common interview question.
What is your strength and weaknesses?
Yes. That is the number one interview question that I hear the most. So what do you think is one of the most common flaws that I hear? I just work too hard. Don't we all work too hard? But I don't really want to hear that. I want to hear honest question. I just work too hard. It's like we all work too hard. But if you really dig deep down inside, you know, you can really think of, and if you're honest, people will appreciate that. So if you really think deep down inside, like, you know, I could be better organized. I could, you know, prioritize my deadlines a little bit better. So it's okay to be honest in your flaws. Just come up with what you're doing to correct that, right? So if you are late on your deadlines and you admit it, it's like, what are you doing to help that? So you could say, you know, I could do better in meeting my deadlines. To help with that, I now use my phone calendar in Google, something like that. So that will help because it's showing that you've come full circle, realization on your flaws, right? Okay. So I put IKEA up here because when I was interviewing my senior year, I got an interview with IKEA Distribution Center in Lebec. Great company, right? No fault to them. They didn't hire me. That's okay. We win some, we lose some, right? But I put it up there because remember I was talking about doing research on companies. That is something I learned very quickly when I went to the interview. I got asked about what the owners' names were, whether they're located in Sweden, if I knew about their vertical integration, all sorts of interview questions I was definitely not prepared for, and I knew I blew it. So I felt like this guy who said, please have a seat. And there was a chair, like, here, put it together. What? So, you know, I learned very quickly, like, after that interview experience, it's like, I need to do my research on the companies that I'm going to interview with before I go there. And, so always be prepared, right? IKEA is another company that is vertically integrated, so they actually do grow their own trees that then are created to the desks that the employees work at. So they're fully vertically integrated. Yeah. So I knew that after the interview, which didn't help me, right?
A little late.
A little late, but yes. So definitely, like I said, just mentioning all of that. You can move to the next.
Okay.
Other questions that people have, I kind of looked at various questions and generalized them into different topics, was kind of how did I adapt myself into the role that I have and kind of what has helped me in my career. And somebody asked what kind of books and stuff I read. So I am really a proponent of looking at myself and how I can improve. I like self-help books. I like Malcolm Gladwell, who's economics. So if you guys read Freakonomics, that's another book that I like. But a reason I put this up here was what I learned very quickly going into the business world was that there's a lot of personalities, a lot of generations within the organization. And I needed to understand how to adapt my communication style to work with different individuals. So I've taken multiple personality assessments, meaning like how do I work, what's the best direction I take to work effectively. So I recommend the DISC profile. It's an assessment test. It's free online if you want to do it, or you can pay $25.99 to do it on Amazon, but just do the free one. So DISC profile, learn about yourself, work more productively. And what it is, it's you take this assessment and asks you various questions, and then it spits out of these 4 dynamics kind of what your profile is, okay? So I learned that I was what's called an SC. S is a person that has steadiness. We're pretty patient, loyal, relaxed. It says passive. I don't take that to offense because sometimes I am. Low is flexibility, impulsive, eager, and that's correct. So I like making calculated risks. I'm not in the impulsive type of person, and I don't like roller coasters. That's just who I am. That's okay. But if I'm dealing with somebody who is considered a D, which is a dominant figure, this person is driven, ambitious, strong-willed. They're not very cautious. They're not very agreeable. It's their way or the highway. So do you think we would clash, right? Because I'm like, whoa, wait to make a decision, and this person wants to make a decision now. So this assessment kind of helped me understand who I was and how sometimes I need to adapt my communication style or how I work in a team with people of other personalities. So D is a dominant person. Examples of that would be Gordon Ramsay, Kanye West, Christian Bale. So you guys have a picture in your mind of the type of person, okay? I is an influencer. That's kind of a person that's like life of the party. They like to do presentations. They like to be the person who has the spotlight on them. Examples of that: Taylor Swift, Jimmy Fallon, Angelina Jolie. Again, S is steadiness. So this is like me. Famous people is Scarlett Johansson, Drew Pinsky, Brad Pitt. So somebody who's kind of more on the calm side, is pretty loyal, is not super in your face. C is a compliance. So this is somebody who's detail-oriented, conventional. They like making calculated risks. And famous people would be like James Franco, Martha Stewart, Ariana Huffington. So, like I said, the reason I bring these up is because it helped me kind of work with different people. So I had a manager who was a high D and always demanded a lot of things from me. And there was a time when I went into the restaurant, I was like, my God, do I still want to work here? But you work it out, right? Because it's never personal. It's always business. So, again, this profile kind of has helped me. So for some of you who ask kind of how did I keep calm under these situations and things like that, I just try to remember, like, okay, naturally I like to take my time, but I don't have that luxury, so I just need to go past it. So I have to oftentimes go against what my internal says. Does that make sense? Has anybody heard of this? Does anybody think that they would take the test? Yeah? Good. So it's called DISC profile, D-I-S-C. Other companies do use this, or they use a variation of this. So Chevron, I know, uses the color method. So if you see that these are in color, that's very similar. So there are some companies who say, okay, this manager is a red, green. Their ideal employee would be an IC. So some companies make you take like an assessment test before you get to the final interview. And this is kind of what they're trying to determine. So, yeah. Anybody intrigued? Yeah? Yes?
Do you guys have any beginner tests or examples like that?
Do we do? For the interview process, we don't. It is something we've explored. Rain for Rent does. They use a system called Carolina Profiles, which is very similar to this, too. So I know Chevron uses it. I think CRC uses it. Big companies generally use like an assessment test like this. I think even if you do the Target Distribution Center, they have one too. But I don't know how detailed it is compared to this. So also after taking this, I kind of discovered that I was an ideal fit for HR because most people in HR positions fit in the S. Because we're people-oriented, we generally like to get a group consensus. We want to do what's best for everybody. Compliance is C. So who do you think might be in this group?
Accountant?
Yes. You get a cup for that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That was pretty quick. But yes. So now explain why.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah. So, but now you gotta explain why accountants are probably in this category.
You said why?
Yeah.
They have to follow generally accepted accounting principles, so they have to essentially be the person that checks and balances everything. So they have to go to the finance department, make sure that everything matches up with the income statement, balance sheet, statement of cash flows.
Yeah, exactly. It's very systematic because they have to be, right? So
Very detail oriented.
right, very detailed. So if things don't match on the balance sheet, they're not going to be happy. They're going to demand it. They're going to demand it. They're going to demand it, and they're not going to be flexible when they can't be, right? Because it's the company's money. These generally, who do you think has a D?
CEO.
And marketing, sales. Sales people are high Ds. Why? Because they need to get the sale. They don't get paid without it. They have to be kind of demanding. They have to tell you this is the way it's going to happen. And a lot of times they push other people. They push accounting people on price. They push marketing people on getting the products. They push production because they made a sale, now they need the product. So, you see the personalities that come out in different positions. Now, can you have something that's out of this and be in another position? Yes. So it's not 100% if you are here, you cannot do this kind of job. I'm just saying very generally that is how it is. Okay? So eyes, this is usually mixed in different types of positions. So the most importantly is to have an effective team. You have to have basically one of everybody, right? So if you have too many Ds, that's too many chiefs and not enough Indians, right? Too many leaders, not enough people to go with the flow. Too many S's, nobody's ever going to make a decision, right? Everybody's going to be like, well, whatever you want to do. So whatever you want to eat. No, it's whatever you want to eat. It's like, so you can't have one of 100% of everything, right? So I'm an SC internally, externally, I'm an SI. And my job has required me to adapt more of the influencer level because I do presentations like this, because I have to convince people to come work for us, right? So, over time, you kind of adapt your style depending on your position, depending on your team, depending on who your boss is, all those kinds of things. So one of you guys asked me, what is one thing you can think of that stands out the most on a resume in both a positive and a negative way? So it's not necessarily on the resume, I would say, that I worry the most about. It's in person. And I think of things like this sometimes. So if I have somebody that is too much on D after talking to them, that they're not going to be flexible, that's going to be a red flag for me, right? Or if you are a manager and you come off after the interview that you are too undecisive, that's going to be a red flag for me too, right? So when we interview, I kind of mentally doing this type of assessment in my mind too. So my job is kind of like a matchmaker, right? So I know the manager's style, and not only am I looking for the person who has all of the skills and qualifications, which is driven from a resume, but also what is going to be the actual fit for the organization, for the manager, everything. So sometimes it's just like magic. You just love it. It's my favorite part. It's like, yes. What's your name? Carlos took the job. He's going to start tomorrow. It's great. And then you're here 2 years later. You've grown with the company. Like, that's my favorite part of my job, right? So find somebody. They've grown with the company. They tell other people how much they love the company. They can find other people to work for us. Makes my job easier. Makes me look good. Makes the company look good. That's kind of my overall goal, right? Everybody still with me? Anybody want to come work with me now? Yeah? All right. Okay. So that's all that I had on the presentation. So I wanted to move to questions, and I think I still have like 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah. You got 20.
Okay, so I was trying to time it in my mind that way. Okay, Jesus Arredondo. All right. You asked, laws and regulations are always changing. What do you do to recommend that somebody stays well informed? So yes, laws are always changing, and the election was kind of a very important time for human resource people. We were very much like, what's going to happen, right? So important laws that have come into play for us. So this whole time, this whole year and a half, we've been prepping for the overtime pay law that was going to change on December 1st, which meant the overtime exempt threshold was going to be raised from $23,000 to $47,500. So you guys, what does that mean, right? So that means if you had taken a salaried job, they would have to pay you a minimum of $47,500, where the threshold currently is at $23,000. So that's half. So that means if you're paid hourly, you get overtime, right? Currently after 8 hours of work. So exempt employees do not get overtime. So if you are making $23,000 and you're exempt, you currently under the law don't make any overtime. So there are people that are in management positions that are essentially making like $17 an hour as an exempt employee, which is not right, in my opinion. So that's why they were going to pass a law. So we have prepared for moving over anybody who was affected, in the organization, which wasn't very many people. And then on the week before, so this would have been effective today. Last Friday, a judge in Texas passed that they can stop the law from going into place. So now the overtime law has not been into place, right? So that means many companies who were going to originally increase those employees that it affected may potentially not. So those are types of things that in HR we have to be aware of, is when laws pass, if they're put the brakes on. So for us, like, we'll proceed, but we still, had to go to the president and say, hey, just so you know, like, we don't necessarily have to do it effective December 1st because the law now says that we don't have to. But we're about doing the right thing, so we proceeded anyways, and that's okay. But that doesn't mean other organizations will do the same. Okay. So then the minimum wage law passed. So over a period of several years, we'll eventually be paying $15 an hour, which is fine too. It's just something as HR we have to kind of be aware of, because that affects the whole company. That's millions of dollars of overtime that we will be investing in employees, right? So not only do we hire those who are in entry-level jobs at minimum wage, that means everybody else has to kind of get a little bit of bump too, right? Because those who are at $15 an hour who are not entry-level, well, now they're going to want to be paid more, right? Because the entry-level position is being paid $15, right? So those are the types of things that we have to look at in terms of calculation and industry rates to make sure we don't go under as a business giving everybody raises, right? And stay marketable to get employees to work for us. You had a question?
Yeah, by law, you guys don't have to technically increase if you're above it, do you?
No.
It's just kind of like an ethical thing, kind of good.
So there's the federal minimum wage, and then there's state minimum wage. So all companies that operate out of California have to abide by the state minimum wage. So federal, I think it's still like at $7.50. Yeah. So if you operate in California, you have to follow the state minimum wage. But there are states in the United States that don't have a state minimum wage; they just go by federal. So as an organization, we're already above the minimum wage, so we're technically okay. What we do is we consistently do like what are called salary surveys. So I call different companies, kind of find out what they're paying. That is very touchy sometimes, because if you call another company, they're like, I don't want to tell you what I'm paying my people. You guys are going to pay more than I am, right? So it's about building the relationships, and it's typically, I will give you our information if you give me yours, kind of thing, and you only do it with people that you trust or companies that you trust. So that's kind of how we determine industry averages. And then there's a lot of information available through the state of California, which they do their own surveys too, that you can look up the information. So another thing to note is in agriculture, it would be a little bit different because we have what's called the ag wage order. So there is another regulation that passed now that we will have to start paying overtime effective 2019. So for agricultural workers in the field, they do not get overtime until 10 hours of work. Right? That is the law right now. Starting 2019, that will lower by half an hour until they are at after 8 hours overtime. So those are things as an HR professional, like I have to be aware of and consistently stay researched on. So in my job, I'm technically a senior HR generalist, so my main function is recruiting, but I stay on top of compensation, regulations and laws, employee relation issues, and then we do talent management, so internal development and training, right? So a lot of that I've learned on the job, but I also very self-driven to research a lot of that on my own. So you kind of have to within HR. What you do is you join organizations like the current SHRM. There's the Cal Pyra organization. There's different websites and stuff I'm partnered with. So they usually email me articles in the morning. I'll read them. I'll talk to different people, and that's kind of how it is, how you stay just on top of different things. So you guys didn't know a lot about the laws, huh? Interested now? Yes, right? So the different laws that passed in November 2 kind of affects us. So, we update handbooks when it comes to that. They had talked about transgender restrooms, guns in the workplace. They had talked about, what else did they talk about? Just several different things. That's stuff that we look at. What does our policy say? Do we have to adapt it? Do we need to roll it out? Do we need to update the handbook? Different things like that. Okay. Let's see. What do you wish someone had told you while you were still in college? Allison?
Allison's usually here, but she's not in that chair today.
That was my favorite question. So, what do I wish I asked 3 other people in the office this same question, and it's kind of, we all had the similar answer. So we feel like college prepares you with the education needed to move into a position, but it doesn't necessarily prepare you for what I mentioned is working with different types of people and how to adapt your style. One funny one that came up was like, don't cash out your 401k. So if you ever get your first job and you start 401k and you move to another job, do not cash it out, because you will have a penalty of like 45%, and those $3,000 look really good when you're 24, but then when you're 30, you're like, man, I could have compounded interest and would have been almost, like 30% more of what I put in. And so you don't realize that, but definitely don't touch your 401k. That was a tip. Other things is don't let yourself get frustrated. So there's a lot of you guys who are looking to get into career jobs, and right now the economy is kind of in the middle. Everybody's interested in what's happening with the election year. So take a risk. If you can relocate, then relocate for a job. You can always come back, right? Like if your family lives here, you can always come back to them, hopefully. But if there's an opportunity to relocate, even if it's in Kingsburg, California, which is in the middle of nowhere kind of thing, take it. I say Kingsburg because I was offered a job there. and I almost took it. So I'll tell you the story. So I worked at Rain for Rent. I was a recruiting coordinator, and I was there for 2 years, and I really wanted to be promoted up. And there just wasn't an opportunity at the time, so I was like, okay, if there's not an opportunity, then I gotta go find one, right? So I did. I was making like $16 an hour at the time, and the other job offered me $55,000 a year, which is almost double what I was making. So I would be a fool not to take it, even though it's in Kingsburg. I said, okay, boyfriend, you'll stay. I'll see you later. Just kidding. We're married now, so I can say that. It worked out for the best. But, you know, I went back and we made an arrangement, and I decided to stay with my current employer, and it all worked out for the best. But had I not taken the risk of potentially moving on to another job, who knows, maybe it might not have happened for me and I wouldn't be where I was, right? So sometimes things like that seem scary, but you never know. Just take the risk. What do you have to lose, right? So if I knew if I didn't take that job, at least I still had my current job, right? So I wasn't losing that. So why not take the risk? And I've heard of other people doing similar things. So oftentimes in my job, I also do a lot of coaching. So I'll coach managers to say, like, hey, sometimes they're scared of, what if I lose this person if I give them this type of training? It's like, well, if you don't give them the training, you're going to lose them anyways. So just invest in them, right? So a lot of times I do that type of coaching. I do the coaching with employees too, which sometimes they're like, I just feel burnt out, or I feel like, you know, they're not giving me an opportunity. It's like, well, you got to flip it around. Also think of the manager's position, and maybe they can't right now, or maybe you got to word it differently. You know, this person came up to me and said she wanted this training. She said it would look good on her resume. I was like, I'm going to stop you right there. So if I was your manager and you told me you want to do this training because it looks good on your resume, well, then it's telling me that you're thinking of like fixing your resume, potentially doing it outwards, right? I go, do you want to leave the company? She's like, no. So then you're just trying to increase it like for the future, or what are you thinking? So after talking to her, it's like, no, she just wants to increase her skills because she eventually wants to be a manager in her existing department. So I coached her to kind of have the conversation with the manager now, like, hey, you want to do this training because it's directly related to what you're doing now. It's going to benefit the department. It's process improvement. Oh, okay. So sometimes it's just flipping what you say, right? Okay. Let's see. We'll do another question here. Still good on time?
Yeah, you got about 6 minutes.
Okay, so I'll do one more question and then leave you guys the room if you guys have any other questions. What is work-life balance in your industry? Elizabeth?
Elizabeth is usually where Emmanuel's sitting right now.
Oh, okay. Man, they had great questions. Not that you guys don't, but I was like, I'm looking at here. So, work-life balance is important. When I first got my first job, I didn't care about work-life balance. I was working tons of hours. I would fly to the East Coast and do recruiting and jam-pack my schedule, and that's what it was, right? I wasn't married, I didn't have kids, I didn't have nobody waiting for me at home. We're just gonna work. You quickly burn out when you do that, right? So as a young person, I thought it sounded great, like, hey, I can travel, I can go to West Virginia and interview for 3 days and then come back and then rest for 1 day and then do it all over again. And it just got very, very burned out. So traveling by yourself, eating at restaurants, and then talking to 50 people a day kind of sometimes gets old. It was very interesting at the time, but that was also one of the reasons I moved the company, was because I wanted to travel a little bit less. So really work-life balance is up to you, right? So I've seen a lot of people burned out. You can work as much as you want if you're an exempt employee. They love it. They'll be like, keep working at home. don't get paid overtime. Just keep working at home. But you can really burn yourself out, and I think it's important to find work-life balance, whatever that means for you. So some people like working through their lunch. Other people I know go to the gym and they run during their lunch, and that's their work-life balance. So you, over time, will find what works for you. For me, what I find is I do work at home, but I make sure that when I get home, it's like nothing for at least an hour. And then I'll check my email, make sure there's no emergencies or anything like that. And then when I got married and I was on my honeymoon, it was like no phone calls, right? Because you need to make sure what's important to you. So in work-life balance, like I said, it's up to you to kind of develop that. There are farming managers that are against time constraints because the crop is going to be harvested no matter what, and it's not your choice, it's when the crop is ready. So in those types of instances, well, they know when the crop is going to be ready, so they kind of plan vacations around it, they plan their stuff around it, so you over time will know kind of your business's busy time and when you can plan stuff and when you can't plan stuff. So that's, again, kind of up to you. So that's my answer on work-life balance. So hopefully you guys have some balance now with some of you probably work and go to school full-time. I do the same thing. Some of you guys have relationships or have family commitments. You find balance in it right now, right? So don't change what you're doing. Just keep at it. Okay. So does anybody have any questions? I still have 2 cups, so you guys can ask me a question. That would have been a sneaky question, but no, you're going to ask me a real question here. Did you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
So on your bees, excuse me, you said you sell the bees to other companies in addition to supplying your own products, right?
So we don't sell them, we rent them to other companies.
Okay, so there's no concern that maybe a rival company could start their own bee farm using your bees?
No. So yeah, they would rent them, but so for bees, we create them, basically rent them out for them to be pollinated elsewhere. The honey is a byproduct that we really haven't marketed yet or created like, oh, this is wonderful honey. It's just something that we sell like locally type of thing to employees and stuff. But the threat of potential people leaving our company to be their own beekeeper, like in their house, that's a potential, and it has happened before. But that's why we have non-competes. Does anybody know what a non-compete is?
Is that like a contract that you write into their
Job offer. Yeah.
So they can't become a direct competitor of you?
To some extent. So they cannot, so it's not necessarily that we're worried about. We would be more worried about they take our contacts and recruit our employees to work for them. Yeah. So like when I'm hired as a recruiter, I sign a non-compete saying that I will not recruit, if I was to leave the company, I would not recruit out of Wonderful. So people from Wonderful have to apply to the jobs that I post online at their own free will. I cannot go and say like, hey, come work for us. I moved companies, yada, yada. So that's in like my non-compete. Salespeople will also have non-competes because they build their network and relationships, and they cannot, if they were to leave a company, they cannot take those contacts with them, and that's basically taking business away from the company. So, yes, but you had a question.
Yes. As an HR major, how are you doing to maintain the sales of the bonds in all the launches? I know you kind of touched into it, but like to be more consistent on like to go to the webpage or do you like?
So I'm a member of like different organizations. So Cal Chamber, I go to the Kern SHRM meetings, which is every first Wednesday of the month. I also network. I also read a lot. There's also different websites that you can subscribe to be a part of like a newsletter they send you every morning. So I usually get those, and that's how I stay on top of the laws and regulations. I have not been surprised yet by a law that's just snuck up on me, but yeah, we also rely on the team as well. So I don't know as much about farm labor contractors, but we have a person who does that specifically, and that's what he researches on. So yeah. Anybody else? Questions? Yes.
What kind of job opportunities does the wonderful company have for business students like us?
So we got a lot of opportunities. So somebody asked about the leadership program. So some of you guys may have seen this flyer around campus last year. Yes? Yeah. Okay. So this is actually through Wonderful Pistachios and Almonds in Lost Hills. So I'm not the recruiter for it, but I learned a little bit about it before I came here. So it's a 2-year rotational program for business students, and what they do is they put you in a segment of the business. You're assigned a project, and then you will move on to a different division. So you would learn about safety, and then you'll learn about shipping, you'll learn about production. So that's kind of about the leadership program. And then for business students, there's a lot of opportunities. It's really kind of what's open to you guys on like what you want to do. So I've recruited successfully from CSUB people into customer sales rep positions at Citrus, which there's some open now. It's kind of the gateway into sales. You basically are assigned certain customers. You make phone calls, you troubleshoot their issues over the phone. So that's an opportunity. For accounting individuals, there's a lot of analyst jobs. There's accounting jobs. There is also product managers, which is my favorite job. Product managers essentially will find out what is going on with a specific product throughout the whole cycle. They will price like how much it costs for a 3-pound bag of Halos. They will find like competitor prices, do an analysis, and then make a recommendation to see like what is the actual price of competitive product to the Halos and where should we be at. So that's how they determine whether it's like $3.99 or $5.99 kind of thing. So those are like some jobs that are available. We're also growing a strategy team, which if you guys are interested in getting your MBA, that is what the strategy team looks for. What they do is they're assigned projects, and they basically they're like a consultant, but internally. So consultants come in and do process improvement on an existing process and help the company save money. Right? Anybody else have questions? No? So you get one
Just
for the
about
B.
runs us out of time. We do need to distribute these cups here.
Yeah, so the B question gets one. And then she had a question about the HR.
Yep. Well, let's everybody give Monica a big round of applause. Thank you for coming, as always.
You're welcome. Sorry I was a little late.
No problem.